Kia ora and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm sitting here with my friend
Sarafina Tipene.
and we hope you enjoy this episode. Alright, it's actually finally happening.
I know.
Like actually happening.
I know, I can't believe it.
I know. Well, there's something about, I don't know if it's like a skepticism thing or if it's just like I'm always really unsure of myself anyway. But when we said like today's the day that it's happening, I was like, nah, it can't be.
Yeah, no.
And
I'm super excited that I'm finally here though.
No, that's
Getting to
so
do
cool.
this.
Yeah, I mean, we probably started this conversation to make this happen over a year ago now.
Yeah.
Like at least over a year,
Yeah.
because I think it was the start of 2021 that we tried to get this going. But a lot has changed in this time, like not only just in the world, but with yourself, change in occupation, change in a whole bunch of things. But that stuff we'll get into today. But I am stoked to have you here, and this
Yeah,
is
me
awesome.
too.
The alignment of things, and I think in terms of energy, like I met with you earlier to talk about it, and I honestly do feel that we're probably in a better space to start having this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember when I first spoke to you, I was so like, I had so many things going on in my life right then. I remember I had a meeting, and the hour after I was talking to you, I had 3 other things that I needed to get done that day. So I just wasn't present at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think if we did it then, I would have been all over the place. So it's probably better that we did it now.
No, I'm so glad. And timing happens like that. Like I think when you try to push things too much, like you do get stuff done, but I don't think you get it done the way that you ever anticipated it or you
Yeah.
wanted it to be like. So that, yeah, I do remember that day, if you don't mind me saying, like we got some food, we were having a chat, and there were times where you like, we're just looking everywhere. Like I could tell your mind was everywhere. And then you like got up really quickly. You
Yeah.
did this really, I don't know if you remember, but you like stood up from the table really quickly and you're like, oh, I gotta go. And then you're like, wait, hold on. And you looked at your watch again. You're like, oh no, that's in half an hour.
Yeah.
And you sat back down and I was
Yeah.
like, where is this girl right
I
now?
know, I'm so sorry.
No,
I
no,
can't believe
no.
I did that, but yeah.
But that's just the nature of the job that you were in at that time,
Yeah.
which we'll get to soon. But yeah, it's so nice to have you. Like you feel a lot more calm. Are
Yeah.
you feeling more calm?
Yeah, I feel way more calm.
Oh,
I have
that's
a
good.
lot less on my plate at the moment, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So before we get to everywhere, I guess the first reason I wanted to get you on, but now it's kind of cool because there has been an evolving period since that happened. Like that was the beginning of a journey as a content creator.
Yeah.
And then people kind of only knew you in that light. But you did so much more before that. But just before, plug the page and then just say what it's about, and then we'll get to the creation of that page.
Yeah, so pretty much I'm the creator of the Instagram page More Māori, and what I do is create like visually engaging infographics on the basic of Reo Māori and to share them online so people can kind of get a daily dose of Reo Māori and just to help people revise and create other ways of engaging online with Māori rather than just having kind of content creators from overseas. So I made little posts. I would make filters so people could like share the language a lot more easier and kind of get more exposed to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just recently, like, I don't know, I looked it up and it has taken a little bit of some downtime in
Yeah,
terms of posting
hiatus.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So for yourself, being that content creator, like how, because it's so easy once you get a following, you like
Yeah.
feel like, I got to post this to maintain
Yeah.
like momentum.
Yeah.
How did you like reconcile with yourself that, it's okay to take a break?
Yeah, I think I just needed to take a break. I had a lot of other things going on that I wanted to focus on. And I was just feeling uninspired. Like I would make posts and I would just be like, oh, well, this is exactly the same as the last one, but maybe different colors and different words.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to feel that obligation of, oh, I have to post because people were expecting it. I wanted to post it if I was enjoying the content and I liked the content that I was putting out. So it kind of just naturally happened like that. But also it was partly like the pressure because back when it was like 500, 600 people, the page was so much easier because I think everyone was sort of on the same page. Everyone knew that, I was learning and the content I was sharing was pretty much like my revision notes.
For sure.
But once I started getting like 5,000 and then eventually 11,000 followers, like the pressure was so much because it became less about less of a conversation, like me sharing what I know and what I've learned and other people like commenting and messaging back, and more like an expectation of if you share something, you have to be right now because there's 11,000 people following this page. And I think I just didn't feel like I had the skills or the knowledge to be creating content for an audience that large. So
I always find that weird, and it's the thing with social media, and it's the thing with our natural kind of propensity to be around people is that we usually have one circle
Yeah.
and then maybe 2 degrees of separation from there. So a person who knows that person from that circle. But once
Yeah.
you go beyond that, you've got people who have no idea who you are now.
Yeah.
They're just thinking this is like some person
Yeah.
who's putting stuff there. They're not thinking about you as the individual.
Yeah.
They're thinking about this is a page that gives me content for my own learning. And then you get other people who see it and like it's shared out of context and sometimes. And then people are like, there's no macron on this. This person's wrong. They
Yeah.
suck. The rest of it sucks. Throw
Yeah.
it all out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that pressure there. And because when did you start noticing it growing? And what do you think were the catalysts for it to start growing?
I think it really started growing when like people with large followings started resharing my posts. That's when I really
Can
started.
you name drop? who were like the ones that you saw? You're like, no way.
The ones I couldn't believe were like Stan Walker, Valerie Adams,
Yeah.
Hemi Kelly.
Yeah.
He's like a big.
Because he is the Māori phrase a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even the Real Māori page was sharing some of my stuff. So yeah, that was when I was getting like hundreds of followers a day. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes it was being shared out of context, and I just didn't know how to handle that situation, to be honest. Even though I was so proud of all the content I made, and I really liked and I really enjoyed that time and really enjoyed all the people that I got to meet through the page. I just, it was just getting a little bit too big for me, I think.
Yeah. And what were the opportunities? So like obviously beyond posting on the page, people sharing it, for yourself as an individual to come out and, actually relay to people. Because there weren't many times that you were actually speaking, unless you were like talking about the types of stuff that you're going to be selling and stuff, but like the actual journey that you're sharing of yourself, like did anyone actually give you an opportunity to, become that individual, to like show who you are, share who you are?
Yeah, I did do a podcast with Te Whānau Waipareta where Richard Green was the podcaster, so they got me to pretty much talk about my whole reo journey and a whole bunch of other things. And then I also did like a little mini lecture with Te Ako Pānuku, so there was a lot of people that kind of reached out and wanted to know like more about me personally and my own journey. So yeah, that was really cool.
That's really cool. And just like a couple of, so these are probably questions that get asked over and over again, but I mean, because everything's a journey, because everything's a process, how you answered one time is going to be different the next time. But now thinking, because you are on another journey of learning more, or you're actually continuing that journey. It's not that you've started a brand new journey, but because I heard it on that other podcast that you've started multiple times, and now you're saying that this is another go at giving it a go. What was the driver for you to actually start the first time?
I've always wanted to learn Māori. My entire life, that's been something that's really been missing from my life, because I've always seen myself as Māori and been proud of that, and not being able to speak the language has always just felt like something's been missing. So yeah, my whole life I've been just trying again. But I think with the page, I was kind of looking for a creative outlet as well, because I'd just been studying law for 5 years, and then now I've gone into work. But previous to that, I was actually like a really artistic person. I really like drawing and painting. So I think I was just looking for a kind of creative outlet, and being able to design those posts, as well as it being a way for me to revise what I was learning. That was kind of just killing two birds with one stone. Yeah.
And you, besides like high school art, which you talked about, and besides like your own hobby, there was never a time when you like came to university or did any extracurricular courses for art? Or like any content creation?
No, I was like, so in high school, I would go home and I would draw for hours. And then I would come to university and I never did anything.
I think that's so many, like with so many different people, they just like head into books and they just like get rid of all the creative outlets, and it's probably why a lot of the time we turn to other vices that to try express ourselves. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm not myself anymore, and you're like, but I know one way, and we think you're going to go to art and pick up a bottle. And no, that's really cool, because I think that artistic expression, or even creative expression, just an outlet that's different from what you're doing every day, which is listening to content from someone who's curating it for you, and then you like revising it.
Because I think if people knew me back in high school, they would have thought that I would have done something creative, like been an animator or something. Because I was really into anime as well back then. So I think law was like a real left field type of thing for me to do.
That's a really cool way, cool transition. So now, thinking about your journey through high school, and then, having, because that's the one thing, is that a lot of people will put it into your head, like what actually gets you jobs. So back then, actually, it's probably still kind of prominent now, but when people talk about, art, and people talk about like performing and creative outlet, they're like, there's no job. This is a hobby. So go do something that's going to get you like paid. Was that a conversation during high school, or were you kind of always thinking law is the way to go?
No, I think so. The reason I did law kind of changed over time. I think initially, I guess you could say, was pretty superficial. Like, I think because when I was growing up, my family didn't have a lot of money. We were really like not well off at all. It was a serious issue for us, and I hated it. Not in like a materialistic sense, like, oh, I can't have nice things. I hated how I hated what it did to my family. I hated how it made my parents feel. I hated how it was like a cause of a lot of conflict in my family. I hated how it was just so stressful. Like, I think that's what people don't realize about about being poor. That's the worst thing, is that it's just extremely stressful, and you don't ever get a break from it. You're always worried how you're going to pay for this, or what's going to pop up that you're not going to be able to cover. So when I was nearing the end of high school, money was obviously something I was considering and a big priority for me. And I know that sounds superficial, but I think sometimes it's just realistic. Like, you can have a job you really like and a partner you really like, but if you're not able to kind of pay for the necessities, it does kind of affect your whole entire life. So yeah, that was pretty much my whole career planning. I knew that stereotypically lawyers made a lot of money, so I decided to do law. I didn't really consider like, oh, what are my interests? What skills do I want to develop? What kind of contribution do I want to make? I didn't even think those things. I didn't even realize that's what people were considering when they were considering careers. I just thought, oh yeah, I just want to make sure that me and my family are, financially secure, so I'll do law.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because to be able to explore things that are of interest and to be able to see a pathway in things that you enjoy, I think in a way, well, firstly, the privilege to be able to get further education is just really, really cool.
Yeah.
But also that it is a privilege.
Yeah.
Like, not all of us get this opportunity, but also to be able to explore your interests means that you had some sort of baseline security.
Absolutely.
So like, you're like, no, I'm the first generation out of this to try and build that baseline for like the next couple of generations.
Yeah.
Because that's something, I mean, it's true. And then people, when they talk about, you talked about necessities. You didn't talk about getting nice things. You talked about just so that we can get to the end of this week without like worrying about, are we going to be able to eat?
Yes.
When my children have to do something for school, like, are we going to have to stop doing one thing so that they can actually go on that trip with that, so they can get stationary? Like, it's very, very basic, but then you get too many people who just say, you just need to work hard, you just need to save your money, and it's like, it's not that easy.
Yeah, Kim K.
Yeah. Recently. So just for you, I mean, I don't want to delve into it too much, but like, we grew up pretty, it was pretty struggle. Like, we were eating those struggle puffs and but seeing the way that your parents can work to make as much possible for you, did you also feel like it was an obligation, or not an obligation, but like you felt that sense of responsibility because you saw your parents go through it?
Yeah, and that's not because my parents didn't put any pressure on me at all. They let me decide what I wanted to do, but that was really just something that I felt like I wanted to do, just because I didn't want to go through that experience again. And like you said, I wanted, like, I'll be the lawyer, but maybe my daughter can do something artistic because she has that financial security. But after I started law, it completely changed, like, because going into it, I didn't really understand what law was besides like a set of rules.
Sure.
But I think after my first year, because we did this legal history paper that went right back to like the first ever laws and like the kings and queens and monarchies and things like that. And that's when I really realized that law, like in its simplest forms, is just a way for a society to organize itself. It's just a set of rules to create order and structure and authority. And that really interested me because I've always been kind of interested in cultures and different societies and how different people organize themselves, whether it be religion or law or culture. That just really piqued my interest. And then when we started going into like colonization and the treaty, that was when it was like really eye-opening for me. And that was when I got the inspiration that essentially motivated me to finish the degree, because, when I was growing up, I had a really good childhood. I had a really good family, but I had a lot of friends who had like really tough stories and had really tough experiences. And I think that's when I noticed that there was a link between the community I grew up in and the legal system that I was learning in class. Yeah. And that's really inspired me to try and do something that could, create a legal system that's more fit for purpose, more fit for the societies that it serves, instead of just, copy and pasting this Western system into New Zealand, maybe trying to find a way to keep the, you know, fundamentals of law or the fundamental principles and functions of law, but then just changing how we apply it or how we adjudicate it so that it can better serve communities that are disproportionately affected by incarceration.
Sure.
Because, yeah, surely, like, 'cause I remember thinking the whole first year, like, there has to be another way. It doesn't have to be like this. Surely there's a way that we can come up with processes that have, like, more Māori concepts and more Māori approaches so that we don't have so many Māori people, you know, filling the prison system.
For sure. Yeah, and there's really, really cool things to take out of that. And it's something that we apply in science a lot, and it's something that we apply to overall health and just physiology is just, you know, if you understand the overall mechanism of it, so like this is the mechanism, these are the principles that are the underlying foundation of where we build our methods. But we're also focused on the methods because we saw this method worked in this community, rather than just being like, how about we go one level below that and say that this is the basic mechanism, and to serve this community properly is we then need to build a method that is fit for purpose, like you said there. And then, like, with that, you're gonna, you know, we already had law, so like we had tikanga, so like being able to see how that fits into it all, and then understanding context. And so, I mean, the problem that I have with law, when you were talking about just then, I was like, it's so grey, and I get scared in grey. But you sound like you thrive in grey. I don't know. I find it really interesting because I like how it is really structured. Like with law, it has like, this is what the law is, or it has a case and this is what the case is and this is what the finding was. So I like it in that it's structured, because I did policy after university. And I felt like I kind of struggled in that because there was no really one answer to thing. It could be this, it could be this. But with law, it's like written there and it's just how you interpret it. But yeah, I definitely think people should stop being scared of trying new ways to do things. Like, just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean we have to keep doing it that way. We can think of new ways. Because like when we were taking that paper, they taught us about how, you know, like the monarchy got overthrown and they brought in parliament. Like we've had massive changes of power and different changes of authority before. Like we can definitely do it now and start creating systems for that are catering more to Māori. For sure. And I think this all comes back to your vision of you going to get educated was not for yourself, was not for your immediate family, but it was for like the generation after. Like you said, it's so that your daughter can go do what she wanted to do, or your daughter's daughter or your daughter's children, like they're all going to be able to, you know, you're thinking long term. And I think that's the problem that a lot of us get into, is that we're all thinking, like we're all instant gratification, like just we thrive off that. We're just like, okay, what can I do now so that tomorrow I'm ripped? Like we're doing the 2-day challenges. We're doing like we post on Instagram. We do all these things so that we can get likes and feel good in that moment. But if we think about time spans and we think about like the overall evolution of different things, 20 or 30 years and things that we were doing. So when we look back to now, in 20 years, we're going to be like, what idiots. We'll be like, did you know that back then they used to smoke these little things that look like USBs? And then, so we're just going to go for it. But yeah, you're right. And that's cool. So let's going into policy, when you were leaving, what made you feel like you didn't want to be like a typical lawyer? I think I still want to be a lawyer. I just wanted to see what policy was like, particularly with the ministry, because I just know they had a really good reputation for upskilling their staff and taking care of their staff. I know they had a really good foundations program, and I know they do a lot of interesting work. So I think the curiosity just got the better of me. I just wanted to see what it was like working in that government department, and but yeah, I do eventually want to go back to law at some point. And what was the pathway from? Because did you pretty much get a job straight out of uni? So how did that work? Did you apply for jobs? Was there like a pathway into it? So they do, anyone listening, they do LDD scholarships that are particularly for Māori. So if you're in your 3rd or 4th year, you don't even have to be studying law. It could be policy. And then they take on university students and they have you for a couple months in a team just teaching you how they do things. And then there's an opportunity to take that forward into a graduate role after university. So, And how many people did they take? It varies each year. It just depends on the applications and whatnot. And so when you did get that, so I remember leaving the comforts of university where like it is full on, but at the same time, like you structure a lot of your day depending on how you want it to go. Now you're going into full-time work, and like I said before at the very beginning of this whole conversation, like that was full on. Like it seemed full on. How did you kind of go from because that's a fast turnaround from just studying and then moving into a different life. What were the main things for you that you kind of like said to yourself to make sure that you stayed on track that year?
I don't know. I want to be honest. I really struggled my first year. It was really hard. I mean, you saw.
Yeah.
Like, I was working crazy hours, and then I was doing profs on top of that, and then I was doing the page. So I probably wasn't helping myself signing up to all these extracurricular stuff. But I think it's just really important to have some sort of stress relief, some sort of outlet. So I would make sure I always went to the gym because that was something that always helped me de-stress. And I guess to some degree is like sort of like meditative for me. Like
Nice.
I just put on my music and then I don't think about anything else. I'm just focusing on working out, and that gives me a moment to kind of de-stress and clear my mind. And then I've said it before, but I've also gone to counselling. Like that has been super helpful in like giving you tools and skills to manage when you have a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress going on in your life. So those would be my two main advice.
That's awesome. Yeah, so do something that you love, but also offload to someone who's going to be non-judgmental.
Yeah.
Because, it's so easy to just try to carry it on by yourself and then just dig yourself further and further into a hole or tell friends. But then, because is it okay if we talk about that?
Yeah.
Like you going to counselling and stuff?
Yeah.
Because that's something that I try to push. Like I push every week, and I'm like, whether it's going to a counsellor or whether it's checking in with someone, but just making sure you're not putting that burden on someone who also then has to live their life.
Yeah.
What was the, like, did your work have something where you could like align with someone, or did you go seek someone? How did that come about?
I went and found someone, but I'm pretty comfortable with counselling now. I started going in like I think my third year uni, so I've been going for ages, and I know how to find people and like link up with people. But yeah, it's super helpful because like you said, you can offload to friends, but I don't want to put too much on your friends, just because again they have to live their own lives, and plus I think it's better to talk to like a professional because they can actually give you proper like skills and strategies to deal with whatever's going on in your life. Yeah. And they can give you like an outsider's perspective. Like you're so stuck in your own perspective, you don't even realize that sometimes you're thinking about things completely wrong. Yeah. Yeah,
it is nice to have someone who's just like, have you ever considered?
Yes. I've never considered that.
I'm slightly mad because I should have seen that, but at the same time, thank you. No, so going back then to the first time you did it, so because you're comfortable now, so it's a little bit different for people like us, because we know that as soon as the triggers start coming, because we've been doing it for so long, we know how to adapt it. But before that, what actually made you take that first step into seeking that further counsel?
I think it was I had just been struggling for so long, like through high school and then the start of university. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I think I just got to a point where I was like, I don't know what to do. So I'm just looking for someone to help. But yeah, the very first time I went, it was so scary. Like it was actually, I think it was down here at the Māori Centre. It was so scary, like, because I didn't want anyone to know that I needed help. But now I'm just like, it's so normal when it's, I think it's actually better for you in the long run. I think you can tell when someone is like, who needs to go but they're refusing to go. It's much better to be getting the help than just resisting it.
For sure. I mean, I always say that the more you bottle things up and the more you like don't face it, because you're like, if I don't face it then I won't see it, then it's not an issue. And then you just sit in there just like, I could cry at any moment, I might break down. So that gives you a safe spot there. That's awesome. That is really, really cool. So during your time at work, because what I find with most people, actually what I find with myself as well, why don't I say most people, is that when I go into a new space, especially if it's like government work or just where I feel like everyone's so hardcore and just like really learned people, I'm so new, I'm like, why? Classic imposter syndrome. The first time you started walking into there, how long did it take you to feel like I'm meant to be here? Did it ever kick in?
I don't think it ever kicked in.
Right.
I remember I really struggled the first couple of months because I didn't have like a professional bone in my body. I just like was not fitting into the workplace. Like I remember I had a really bad habit of swearing, and people were like, oh my God, stop swearing. So I really had to take time to like develop, I guess a work personality and be, professional and learn a way to like connect with people, but in a workspace environment. Because, when you're studying, like you just hang out with your friends the whole time. Like, I think that's the other thing is like working with older people. Like that was a really different for me. So yeah, it hasn't 100% come perfect yet, but definitely something that I'm still working on.
Yeah. And how many years did you work there before you decided to step away for a little bit?
Um,
Because you haven't fully stepped away, right?
No, yeah, I'm on leave without leave without pay this year.
Yeah.
So I worked about 2 years there,
Mm.
and then have taken this year off.
So in that time, like was it like a gradual kind of steadily taking more and more responsibility, or did you feel that as soon as you got it, like you just hit the ground running and it's all on?
I think it was like a steady thing over time.
Okay.
And I think the other thing that makes it a little harder is that a lot of workplaces don't have a lot of Māori in them. So
Yeah.
it's harder to like find people that you can like really connect with and relate to.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think it's the ageism as well. Like it definitely is a thing. Coming through as like a new academic myself,
Yeah.
like I still have people who tell me to do the jobs that you would do as a student.
Mm.
There is that respect thing that you have with seniority and all that sort of stuff. But like at the same time, I did the same qualifications that we all did to get here.
Yeah.
And you still
Yeah.
kind of get looked down upon a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like not to throw whoever you're working for under the bus, but did you feel like there was kind of that overarching thing when you were in the workplace, or were they pretty fair?
I think they were pretty fair. I
Yeah.
honestly really liked the people I work with.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they were super helpful, to be honest, really generous with their knowledge.
Mm.
I think it was just myself. Like I just had a lot of anxiety and I would overthink things and be really critical of myself. So I think that's what kind of slowed down like the process of getting comfortable and like finding my own.
Mm.
But yeah, the people I worked with were really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that's a very mature reflection. Most people won't figure that sort of thing out. Like they'll never put it back on themselves. It's always like other people. Like they never take that responsibility to be like, okay, maybe I was a little bit like this, and there is a place to meet in the middle. But it's never just like I was right the whole time.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't look after me. Like you actually got to have that chance, and I think
Yeah.
that puts you in a better place for if you do walk back into there.
Yeah.
Because that's if they are still kind of contracted you,
Yeah.
you can go back, right?
Yeah, I can go back.
Right.
Or if I decide to go to another place, like I can always take the lessons that I learned from there to the new place and just know to like ask questions. Because that was the other thing is that I was like scared to ask questions for some reason. Whereas
feel you,
like
girl.
you're meant to ask questions. Like these people are meant to help you learn. But yeah.
I think we just get so scared of like being outed as like, you don't know, I knew it.
Yeah.
Like we just think that everyone's waiting to catch us. But because once you start asking questions and once you start realizing that people are giving you feedback so that you can
Yeah.
be better.
Yeah.
Like they want you to be better. We all work in a team.
Yeah.
Like you get the asshole every now and then, but like most times we're just like, oh, like we were waiting for you to ask.
Yeah.
It's just like, you just need to put your hand up. Yeah.
That's so true. Like that's something I've really learned over the last 2 years at both work and through the page is like how to properly receive feedback. Because like I think a good thing to remember is that any type of feedback is good feedback. Like it's gonna help you grow. It's gonna help you, change and be better, even if it's delivered in a way that you probably don't like. And the other thing to remember is that the person giving the feedback sometimes is just as uncomfortable as you. Like you know how managers have to give you feedback every now and again, or like for in the Reo Māori context, like I know that it's kind of uncomfortable for a lot of Māori speakers because they grew up with not a lot of spaces where they could speak Māori or was undervalued, and now they have to, help people learn, and they have to be considerate that they might hurt someone's feeling if they give them feedback. So I understand that sometimes when people are giving feedback, they're just as like unsure and uncomfortable. So I think keeping that in mind when you're, receiving criticism or getting critique, that's really helpful. But also to like separate yourself from the feedback, like they're critiquing your skills and your knowledge and you can always change that and build on that. They're not critiquing you as a person. Like, don't take it so seriously. It's just things that you can change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not saying to you, you suck.
Yeah.
They're just being like, hey, when you did this? And they're like already talking about the action. They're not talking about you. But it's so easy to just internalize it, eh?
Yeah.
Just take it on like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
That's a really cool place to take it now. So like with your real journey and I distinctly remember you saying you had a stab at it 3 times. What in each of those moments was, when you saw it start, then when you saw it finish, like what was the typical pattern that you would go through before it got to the end of like the first phase and then taking some time off? I
think for the first time I had to go at it, I just ran out of time because this was back when I was studying. So I just, I didn't really have enough time and I keep missing classes. I think the second time I had to go, it was with the page, and that was kind of what I touched on before. Like I was feeling uninspired, and then I was feeling a lot of pressure about posting. And then now I'm taking another stab at it because I'm doing full immersion this year. But yeah, it's going pretty good so far. We've had a couple classes, and all my classmates are really nice. They're really old ladies as well. It's a really, really sweet, and it's like a really easy learning environment. So hopefully this goes a lot better.
Yeah. So who are you doing that stuff with now?
Te Wānanga o Aotearoa.
And how did you get involved with that?
I just signed up to their courses online. Yeah.
Yeah. And is most of your class Māori?
Yeah, the full immersion one. Yeah.
That's very, very cool. Yeah. Now let's get into some of the philosophy around. Just with because it's become such a everyone. Well, not when I say everyone, I say majority of people really do understand the inherent value of speaking reo, and that's non-Māori alike.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of friends who have had the privilege of being able to be in those spots. Take the spots because they're filling up. They fill up so quickly, and then they're like, it might be a 2-year wait until you can actually get into at least like stage 1 or something.
Yeah.
And I've had this conversation with multiple people, and they're usually my non-Māori friends, and they get there, and then they end up in the full immersion, and then they end up being almost very competent reo speakers.
Yeah.
But then they speak to me about this dilemma that they have, where they're just like, for me learning, I'm taking spots from Māori who are signing up and they're not given this privilege.
Yeah.
I know you actually had a bit of dialogue around this. I think when you started the page, you used to get talking going.
Yeah.
What was the views from most people who would sign in?
I think everyone had a whole lot of
very
different views. But I think the main ones that were coming through is that there were people that felt guilty about taking spots, and I know a lot of Māori were frustrated because it's a lot easier for Pākehā to learn as well, because they don't have sort of that chip on their shoulder about not being able to speak their own language and having it taken away from them, which I think is fair. I don't know if it's something that we should put on individual, Pākehā students, but maybe there should definitely be a way that the wā kind of chooses its students. Maybe it gives priority to those people who are enrolling in their Māori. But it's a tricky issue, to be honest. Yeah.
But then I always try to just be as compassionate to everything as possible. Even when it doesn't serve me, and even when it kicks me in the face, I just try to be compassionate at some time. And I'm like, but because most of them were doctors, medical doctors, and I was like, if you come across a family who already does not want to see you, and you can do that, and you can have those dialogues, you've already made the lives of these people better. So you have those tools as well. It's kind of like where we go to our counsellor. It's where we go to different things, because hopefully when we go into our everyday life, we're able to apply it somewhere.
Yeah.
But also it gives you, so this is another conversation I want to go into, is the lens that it gives you into a culture.
Yeah.
And I've heard you speak about that. So you're, transforming your ideas around what it means to be Māori. So if you just want to start from your journey at the beginning, what you thought it was to be Māori, and then how that's been evolving over time.
Yeah, no, okay. So pretty much when I was growing up, I couldn't speak any Māori. My dad couldn't speak any Māori, and I obviously knew I was Māori, but I didn't have much knowledge about the culture. And in high school, I'm allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, cool.
I was a real arsehole in high school. I was a bully. I wouldn't go to class. I just made a whole lot of decisions that were really bad and I really regret. But I think it was mostly driven by the fact that I had a really skewed view of what it meant to be Māori. I think just because there's so many negative representations of Māori, especially when we were growing up, people would always say, if I did something wrong, that's the Māori side of you. People had really racist views about Māori, and I kind of internalized that and felt like I was being true to myself if I was being a play up at school.
Yeah.
But when I started learning Māori, I obviously started learning about more of the culture and more of the kind of cultural concepts, and I realized that it has nothing to do with anything that I thought back in high school. It's actually a really, beautiful culture. It has really beautiful ideas, and that's when I started to grow sort of my self-confidence, because I had a much better image of what it meant to be Māori. I had a much more accurate understanding of what it meant to be Māori, and I could kind of use that to be proud of myself and be proud of who I am and what I'm doing. Yeah,
that's cool. Because you're so right, and a lot of the stereotypes that come with it, it's actually sad when we start to internalize it and we believe those things, and we're just like, this is the power of colonization. That we've now that we're believing it about ourselves and just continue to reproduce it because we think that that's the way that we're meant to be and we've always been like this, that's like we're doing their job for them.
Yeah,
we're just showing them exactly why we need them. But really, so that's a really cool realization. So when you started, like, was it immediately when you started to learn Māori that you started having these sorts of reflections?
No, it was over time. Like it would be little things like learning about whakatauki or learning about Māori history. They were just little things over time that, and also the more I knew, the more I felt like it made sense because I kind of already thought about the world in that way, but I just didn't have the words to put to it. So it sort of felt like deja vu. It's like I've already been in these types of spaces and I've already had these types of conversations. I just didn't have the words to put to them.
No, and it's so metaphorical, metaphysical, like everything about it. It doesn't just connect you with a language, it connects you with a culture, it connects you with different times. It's like the way that you then become like a student of the world by learning a culture at that sort of intimate level. It's like, it's actually beautiful. And the expressions that it has within you, you explain it one time and then it starts like building and building and building. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. And being able to, so let's go back to the page now. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but there's just ideas. When you were going through it and, you know, putting that stuff out, did you find that it helped you learn as well, like creating that content?
Absolutely. That year that I had the page going, that I never learned so much Māori than that year. Just because I was so excited about like it blowing up and making more content that I was like, you know, going home after work every day and like reading more online, going through more resources. I just wanted to learn as much as I could, and that was probably the most progress I've made with the language that year. But also because people would message me and ask me questions. And if I didn't know, I'd be like, oh, hold on, I'll have a look. I actually don't know that. So people were like prompting me to learn as well. But and then also people sending me feedback like, oh, I don't think it's that. I think it's this. Or I think this is how you actually say that. So I had like, I was obviously helping other people learn, but there were definitely followers that were helping me learn as well.
That's cool. Yeah, so it like actually became a community.
Yeah.
Like you weren't just an influencer and it's like, look at me. You like actually had an underground working to make sure that your content was great.
Yeah. That's then like every time we would have like those sessions where I post a question and take everyone's whakaaro, like I learned so much about like reo Māori and the culture just through having conversations with people like that. Yeah.
And then there's going to be times where people ask you a question and you'll just answer. Like you're probably doing it now where you'll answer and you're like, I don't know where I learnt that, but and then it's like probably because of your conversations that you've had.
Yeah. And like listening to other people, like previously before I started learning, when people spoke Māori, I didn't understand it at all. It was just like complete gibberish. But now like I can listen into people's conversations, I actually know what they're saying. And it takes me a second to realize that I can hear like what they're saying, like understand what they're saying. But those little moments are like, oh yes, I'm making progress.
And like the more proficient you become, like it won't even sound like it's a switch in language. You're just like, I'm just understanding. I'm just here now. Take it. Now you're in this class and you've been in other classes and you've been around people who are proficient Māori speakers, like different learning stages. How hard or easy is it for you to be like, oh, you know that page? Or like if someone's talking about it, to be like, I started that.
I never mention it.
I was going to say,
I never mention it. I only talk about it if someone brings it up to me. Just because, I don't know, it just feels weird to be like, hey guys. I'm the more Māori creator. But there has been times where I've run into people and they've said, oh, you're the girl that runs that page. Yeah, but other than that, I won't say anything.
Okay. And on top of that, when you do... say someone's speaking about it and say you did start it, so you don't want to put it out there, but at the same time, is there a part of you that like is super proud that it's you, like not for the content, but like do you ever get that like, you know, that superiority that like I'm an influencer now, but like
no.
Okay, great. I was just letting everyone know that you're a down to earth person.
No, I never feel like that. Sometimes I feel like a little embarrassed, to be honest, but I mean I'm proud of the content. I'm really proud of the content, but I do sometimes feel embarrassed that like there's so many people that have seen it. And and after a hiatus, this is always something that most people will be scared of. Like I took a break from recording a little bit, and when I came back, like I was really scared that it's like, what if this doesn't hit anymore? What if people have moved on and it's not the cool thing anymore? So for you, what are the priorities for yourself for when you are going to start getting some content going again? I think my priorities are that it's helping me and other people learn, and that it's content that I am enjoying making and enjoying putting out. If I lose heaps of followers, I don't mind. I just want to be enjoying the process of learning the language, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, and it all came so quickly.
Yeah.
Like, what do you reckon the time span was from like the couple hundreds to over 10K?
It's about 4 months.
That's ridiculous.
I know.
That's so oh man. Yeah, and then like to even conceptualize 10,000, we don't even fill stadiums with that many people.
That was what really hit me the other day when it was first blowing up. I was on a plane and they were saying like, oh, this is one of our bigger planes. It's got 250 people on it. And I was like looking around, there were so many people. I was like, this isn't even close to the amount. Like it really put into like perspective how many people 10,000 people are.
Far out. And now thinking about going forward and you actually in your journey, what are some things that you have kind of picked up as part of your reflections for now that you're going through and learning a new one? So because skill acquisition is something that I'm so fascinated by. I'm so fascinated by behaviors and what gets people started and then what maintains them over time. So, you know, you've said before you've started, you finish, and it's just like lack of time. Maybe you weren't in the right mindset to be learning. But for you, if you are going to have a proper stab at it and continue it over a long period of time, what are you doing for yourself to maintain it?
I think things that are really helping me maintain it at the moment is having people around me that speak Māori. Like that's really good because, I don't know, I never have told anyone this, but the people who speak people in my life that I know speak Māori are such huge inspirations to me. Like just seeing them, you know, just slide in a few sentences here and there in Māori, like that is something that I really want to do. So I have people around me that really inspire me, but also now that I'm kind of getting older and I'm thinking about, you know, maybe having a family, it's become a huge drive for me, is because I definitely want my kids to be able to speak Māori, and I think it would be so much easier if I can speak it too. Like obviously I could put them into like a kura and they could learn, but I want to be able to help them when they're, I don't know, doing their homework. So those are kind of my two main drivers, to be honest. Yeah.
And then now the thing that every new learner is going to go through is like just shame. Because, like, you don't get things right.
Yeah.
How have you been with accepting that part?
I think it's something you just have to be courageous, and you just have to do it and just put yourself in that position, because I think it's definitely the hardest when you first start.
Oh, yeah.
That's when you're the most uncomfortable. But the more you do it, the more you put yourself out there, the more you just give it a go and get used to making mistakes, it does lessen over time. It doesn't go away completely, but it does get better. And, like, you just have to be easier on yourself. You know, you're just learning. It's just a natural process of learning, making mistakes. So don't be too hard on yourself if you make mistakes. And like, I know that sometimes people feel discouraged because other people may make fun of them or may shame them. But I mean, we can all see the humor in it, right? Like we all see, like when someone mispronounces something, we can see that it's amusing. Like, don't take it so personally. It's just like, it's not a big deal. Like we can all see the humor in it, and if someone's taking it a step further and they're actually, you know, shaming you and like actively making fun of you, then I feel like that speaks to their character more than it reflects on you. So just honestly, you just have to get into it and get going, and you'll find your comfort over time. Yeah,
and even if it is just little things every day, like, you know, looking at the stuff that you did, your content started very, very small. Yeah, right, like just days of the week type things. Yeah. So is that like, even that is enough, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like that's a really good point actually, like trying to keep it very simple. I think if you get bogged down in all the details, then that's when it becomes really hard to revise, and that's when it becomes really hard to understand like how all the different like concepts fit together. Just start with the very basics, very general understanding of the basics, and then as you move on, you can kind of build on that understanding and then add in the finer detail. Yeah. But starting just very simple, like the tense, the verb, and the object. Like that's all you need to do.
And I think it's probably one of the issues is that because we, you know, most of us grew up as just speaking English, but when we're taught English at school, it's not taught as if you would learn a foreign language. Like you're not taught very basic things. We're taught about sentence structures, and we're talking about really, really long things, and like building an idea, building like a concept, and then describing the concept rather than just like, this is a noun, this is a verb. Yeah. But like, so we're just like, oh yeah, we should learn another language. Like we learned this language, but it's like, no, you were conditioned to be able to speak that language.
Yeah.
That's why you can go like complex. So
Yes.
sometimes bringing it back. That's what I said before. It's a very long thing. Our conceptualizations of time is just like, all right, how will I be fluent by Friday? And it's like Wednesday. You're like, no, just like slowly over time, and then you'll find out that you're picking things up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it helps also to focus less on the results and more on the process. So if you're focusing, this is how much Māori I know, I only know these few things, then you're always going to feel kind of discouraged. If you just focus on the process and say, okay, I promised myself I would spend however many hours this week spent learning Māori, and I did that, that's a win.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're fluent, it doesn't matter if you know more than someone else, just focus on what you promise yourself. And over time, all that time will add up and you've made like strides.
Yeah. I think this is like, if we can put this up for most people, like, you know, I'm always trying to push things, like my job is to do policy, is to get more people more physically active and more like living healthier lifestyles. I honestly think if you put like this into it, like learning a little bit more about your culture, even if it's not strictly reo now, but it's like understanding more around why reo is important, then it all starts to make a little bit of sense. Because I think at first we like, I want to learn this language, but there's no context behind it. It's just like, I'm going to learn how to speak this so that I can speak this. It's like, why did you go on Duolingo to learn how to speak Spanish? Like, it was just, I want to know how to speak Spanish. But like, if we learn a little bit more about ourselves and the reasons why, that also gives us purpose. Yeah,
that's so true.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, I just had a question that popped into my head there, and I was like, oh, should I ask that? But it's just having an audience of over 10,000 people, you knowing that this is a learning journal, like this started as a learning journal, but then also being the person who, so like you do have that community who support you through it, but like feeling like you should just take it down because you didn't feel like the right person to champion it.
Yeah.
What did that happen?
Yeah, I felt like kind of what I was saying before, I felt so much pressure to be putting out absolutely correct content because I had such a huge audience and I just didn't feel like I had like the skill or the knowledge to be making content for that audience. Yeah. And
it'll be cool because you get to look back at some time and just be like, remember when I did this? Yeah. And it's like, this is it. It's the process.
Yeah.
Like I'm learning over this time. Have you ever thought about going like a bit more like vocal or like just being in front of the camera? And
I mean, that's what I was kind of thinking of doing this year because I don't want to stop posting on the page altogether. I do want to start posting again, but I just kind of want to think of a way that I can do it that's kind of new and interesting. I don't want to continue making the same post that I always made.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't thought of what that could be yet. I'm just hoping that over the course of the year, I'll learn a bit more so I can share a bit more, and then I'll think of another kind of creative way to share what I'm learning because I'm kind of sick of the standard posts.
Yeah, that's fair, and that's what leads to that being uninspired with doing things, and then like you lose the life behind why you were doing the different things. And then because you do that, then the content starts to slip a little bit. Then you start like maybe even your journey is intertwined with the page, and then you just like stuff that page, stuff the journey, but but you might learn from someone who has a really cool way of grasping you, and you're just like, I'm gonna take some of that. Yeah. Because it's all a collaborative process in the end.
Exactly.
We're all going towards the same goal.
Yeah.
That's cool. So your this course that you're on right now, how long is it looking at, and then what are the kind of things that they will get you to do eventually?
So this course is just for this year, but I know they do courses right up to, so I'm at level 4 at the moment. I think they do courses right up to level 8. So I could spend heaps of years doing this, and I think I will do that. So this year I'm just focusing mostly on doing the full immersion, but I think next year I'll go back into full-time working and take on some evening classes.
Cool.
Yeah. But they were saying that this year most people can reach at least fluency and have like basic conversations. Yeah, so that's going to be super exciting. And then the next years after that will just kind of be adding in more detail and fine-tuning things and making your fluency a little bit more advanced. So
what's the weekly requirements?
They have about 2 classes a week, which go for 4 hours, and then they have a couple noho and wānanga every other weekend, and then we have a bit of homework to do outside of class as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So you're consistently engaging. Like there's never that's the way, eh? It's just any way that you can use it or use it a little bit more. Yeah. Like they say, use it or lose it. I was actually going to go into you. Congratulations, you were also admitted to the bar. That's what they call it, right?
Yeah.
So you did your profs, and the profs is that year when you were working and doing additional studies so that you can do that.
Yeah.
So what does that open you up to do?
So that pretty much gives you a practicing certificate, so you can actually be a proper lawyer. So it takes you from a law student to an actual lawyer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really exciting. The profs focus more on kind of like practical side of things, like mediating, advocacy, rather than writing legal opinions, which is what you do at university. So that was a really cool experience. I just kind of wish I took enough time off to do it. I wish I did it like over summer or something, rather than trying to squeeze it into work.
Yeah.
Because that kind of dragged it out over the year, but we got there in the end. So that's
the
main thing.
Yeah, so that gives you more avenues to go into different practices if you want to.
Yeah.
That's cool. And just, do you know the history behind that wig?
Someone actually asked me this on Instagram the other day, but apparently it was really fashionable back in the day, and everyone wore wigs in court, so it now has just become a tradition.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that. I didn't research that hard into it.
Yeah. You're just like, well, apparently. Yeah. And now thinking about, so if we go a few generations down, you've worked on wherever you wanted to work. You're now a proficient Māori speaker. You can teach it as well. You have different platforms of teaching. For you, what does, your role in all of this, like what, if you're thinking about the law and kind of the Venn diagram of the three communities that you're kind of a part of, and what would be like an ideal scenario for you?
I think the ideal scenario would be if I became fluent, and that kind of gave me the skills and tools to, better engage with Māori communities, better understand whakaaro Māori, and then I could use that to kind of like imbue concepts more culturally relevant to Māori into the criminal justice system. Because I know there's a bunch of people already doing that. They're already writing up ways to, bring more Māori approaches to criminal justice, whether it be like whānau and marae-based sentencing, or greater incorporation of reo Māori and tikanga Māori into law. So that would be my ideal kind of career path, I guess.
That's very, very cool. That is so beyond self that it's like awesome. Yeah, like, we are the individuals who do this sort of work, but like you can tell people who just genuinely like are thinking about everyone else. They're like, okay, if I just can, like this little bit of me commits to this, then like systemically we can do this sort of thing. And you'll have people who are inspired by the journey who also come on similar paths, and then they'll meet you in a few years, and you're just like, hey, they're like, hey, you had that page, and now
true, actually.
So like you never know, like paths cross, and the amount of reach that you have, like someone's bound to know something about something that you need to know, and then they'll just be like, hey, I can do this, and then bam, you've got that.
Well, I noticed that when I was working at the ministry, because what I was doing was trade engagement, so we would engage with different groups like business and civil society, but mostly Māori groups. So we were pretty much trying to figure out like new partnership models. Instead of doing like the standard consultation with Māori, we're trying to figure out a way that we could actually bring Māori into the conversation and involve them in every step of the negotiations. And I met so many different people just on those couple of engagements, like iwi leaders, Māori business, and everyone knew each other and everyone fitted into each other's needs, and it was just really cool.
Yeah,
really
it's very strengths based, and when we see that we can be part of a team, and that we see that like I've got this strength, what does everyone else have, and then we're just like, okay, we'll make it work, rather than being like we're in competition. We're not, like we're all in the same race, but we're all like in the same team as well as we go across with all of that. I just like, I can't get over that all of this has just been happening in your life, just kind of like unfolding, and you're just so relaxed, like you're so chill.
People always say that to me. They're like, why are you so chill? Should you not be freaking out? But I don't know. I think that's just my personality. I just don't like to get too flustered about things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, something I should have asked at the very beginning, more Māori. The name, I don't know if I've seen any, maybe I have just didn't do my research enough, but why was that the name? Why is it the handle?
I was just trying to think of something that was easy to remember. So if someone's like saw one of the posts, they'll be able to remember easily the name and search it up. And I thought like the more and the Māori, I don't know, it just kind of sounded nice and was easy to remember. The double M.
Yeah,
so
that's
I was like,
true.
Yeah, that's gonna do well.
And did you design the logo itself?
Yeah, so I make everything on Canva.
Right.
So I don't know if anyone's used Canva, but they have a whole bunch of like preset sort of designs, and then you just have to pull them all together.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I didn't physically draw the pictures and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but I did put the pieces together.
But even preset designs, like it sounds like it's easy, but
Yeah.
if you just aren't aware of space and like how to do stuff,
Colors.
yeah, it's not good. I have the worst eye for that. Like people would be like, "Are you colorblind?" Like I just like, okay, does this say what it needs to say? Yep, and then that's all I
There
need
you
to
go.
do. Yeah. So don't get me to
Perfect.
decorate your room. And I'm not gonna lie, I read it as More Maori for
Oh, did you?
so
Oh,
long.
I didn't even think
Yeah,
of that.
for
but
so
yeah,
long I was
true.
just like, Mori? I was like, huh? I was like, Mori? And then I just didn't think, more. Oh, my bad.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I
but-
didn't even thought of that.
But it's taken off. And like, obviously people grasp the handle and then they're just like, I'm going to learn more Māori. So that's cool. Now, the final question before the final question that I ask everyone is, you did touch on the podcast that you did before. How has this been with like just us in the room versus apparently you had a crew?
Yeah, so I mean, I loved the last podcast I did, and the guys who ran it, they were super nice and really cool and genuine people. But that was like my first podcast I did, so I was obviously really nervous, and I didn't even take time to like take a breather when I got to the studio. I just dived straight into it. So I was super nervous about just starting off straight away, but also had a couple of my really good friends coming to watch me as well. So I was trying to, impress them. So I think it was just a lot going on, and I got a bit anxious, but this is a lot more chill and a lot better the second time.
I'm glad, but like you were very eloquent in that first one, and
Thank you.
the way that you were speaking about things, and it gave me obviously it gives me something to build off because I don't want to repeat what they did, but also like there were some really cool points you touched on, but I think because they stick to a time limit as well,
Yeah,
you're just like
that's the other
shortly
thing, yeah.
touching on things. I'm like, but that's so cool, but like it was a really cool starting to it, and it's kind of like when you do a presentation in front of your friends, and you just like
Yes.
can't do your best.
I can't look at you guys.
And they're all so proud of you, and you're just like, oh gosh, stop it. No, that's cool. That's really, really cool, and I'm glad that we can get it back out there. And I'm glad that you're doing, like, you seem so much better. Your energy's vibrant, and you like are loving what you're doing. By the same,
Just taking a little break from it all.
Yeah.
Probably be back into it next year though.
yeah, right. So we have a 2-year hiatus. On this, but
Check in again next year.
And then my final question that I ask everyone on this podcast is, what is something that you do every day or close to every day that makes you feel like you've optimized the day?
That's a good question. I probably clean my room. I know this sounds so basic, but when I was growing up, like doing things like basic things like cleaning my room and taking care of myself, I used to not do that. So now being able to get up early and clean my room is like such a big win for me. And it does like set the intention for the day for me. Like, okay, I'm organized now. I'm ready. My room's clean. I can go and do other things now. Yeah.
No, that's a really cool one. I think anything that you can do to set yourself up for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And that one, because it's like right at the beginning of the day, then like everything after that point, if you don't do anything, you've achieved a lot
Yeah.
just by waking up.
Because if I get up late and my room's dirty, I'm just like, okay, I'm not doing anything today.
Oh, right.
This is an off day for me.
Yeah. So that really plays into your overall psyche for the day.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then for, maybe because we've got you here as the person who does, your content, and then for your daily, is it a daily thing where you're, practicing your reo, or is it like, do you have practices in place besides your class, like outside for yourself?
Yeah, so I pretty much just revise over any content. To be honest, there's a lot of things that we're learning that are really, it's really hard for me to, it's not sticking at the moment, so I'm just kind of going over it over and over again. So yeah, I just revise over any sort of class material I have. But also, following accounts that are similar to mine and like share Māori each day, like Hemi Kelly's really good. It's a really good way to just get like a daily dose of Māori.
Yeah. And just using it as much as you can.
Yeah.
And sometimes you make mistakes, and not just doing the things that you're good at. That's something that I was guilty of for ages. I'll just be like, I'm good at that, and then I won't get anything. I won't get anything wrong, and I'm like, dumb man. So like pushing yourself to be uncomfortable, because you're probably uncomfortable majority of the time. Yeah, and that will always stick with you, and that's because I think you have a proper willingness to actually get better at it. So you have that discomfort because this is meaningful to yourself. If it wasn't uncomfortable, then you're probably like, ooh, am I in this for the right things? Yeah.
That's so true. Like, I think it's so important to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because you can apply that to all areas of your life, not just Māori. Like
Yeah.
I remember when I first started going to the gym, I was so nervous. Like especially here at Unipol, where the weights gym is like pretty much just all dudes. I was like, oh my god, I can't do this. But over time, you get more comfortable, and it just kind of becomes second nature.
For sure.
Yeah.
Man, this has been awesome. I'm actually really, really glad that we took the time.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm glad that we were able to get each other in and just like feel it out and just find the right time. Because I can guarantee, even though I can't read into the past or change time, but I know that if we were to do this a year ago when the page was still popping and everything was going on in your life, I don't think we would have had the same kind of fluency as we did today.
No, neither.
Yes.
I'm glad it happened as well.
So
Thank you for
really,
having
really
me.
appreciate your time. No, thank you for coming in. And if there's anything else we can do to help, even though you're the one who probably helped us a little bit, but we can make sure that that gets out there.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.